What's going on, YouTube? I know it's been a minute since I've uploaded a video. I really suck at this. I've been relatively busy, not extremely busy. Obviously, when the spring hit, I was extremely busy, and I was 2-3 weeks out at a time. For me, that's pretty busy. We're just starting year two, so I'm pretty blessed to still be in business and to really enjoy this type of work. But today I'm making a part two of a previous video about door knocking because this year I've committed to door knocking. I used to talk about it, in a certain way, like, oh, if I had to do it, I would. If, I'm not scared to talk to people, but like talking in theory versus practicality, like actually going to do it is totally different. And I'm talking about this because I know a lot of guys don't have a big budget. They don't have a ton of money for marketing and advertising and wrapping their vehicles and tons of yard signs and stuff like that. So there's a way to get jobs where you're not spending a whole lot of money, because the truth is most people don't start with a whole lot of money. There are examples of people that do, but I know I'm not one of them. And I started my business when my son was born, March of 2023. And now it's year two. My son is almost 16 months old, or he probably is 16 months old at this point. Sorry, I keep looking this way because my wife's probably going to show up any second now. But now it's year two, and we're pregnant again, right? So my wife isn't able to. She is able to work, but financially speaking and just logistically speaking, it's easier for her to stay home with the children. Just that's what we decided as a family. So mainly I really encourage her to stay home because I want her to raise our children, and I'm not going to get into that. We can talk about that another time. But anyway, so I'm just kind of trying to relate to some of you guys. I know not everybody's in a great position financially. Not everybody starts, so far ahead. Like, you start and you're just trying to scratch and claw and bootstrap your way to doing this full time and making decent money. Because that's the objective when we get into this business, is not because, oh, we're just going to make some side money. I mean, it is for some people. They just do this part time or on the weekends or whatever, and that's totally fine. But for the people that want to make this a full time business in the future, you get in with an excited mind. Your imagination is huge, and you really want to make this thing work. But the nature of business, especially if you don't have prior business experience and all the connections and money and all this stuff that gives you, that can catapult you further than most, you have to be not really that creative. I mean, it helps to be creative on the social world, the online social media world, but honestly, it's just practical stuff. Just going out, shaking hands with strangers, telling people that you're in business, over promising, over delivering, like, really selling yourself to people, because that's what I've learned in my short time door knocking for this. But I've door knocked in the past for a real estate company, but for door knocking for my own business, really you're selling yourself. The first 10 to 15 seconds of you at the door, you're just trying to get these people to somewhat trust you. You're trying to come across as likable, trustworthy, and at least somebody that's worth listening to. And I'm not saying that you should manipulate people, because you should be somebody that genuinely is trustworthy, genuinely is likable, and you're not just spewing a bunch of bull crap. You're not throwing all this bull crap at people. But the harsh reality about door knocking is it's mostly failure. So if you can't handle failing 95% of the time, it might not be something that works out for you. But I think it's at least worth a shot, especially if you're on the verge of quitting the business. If business is slowed down, which I've noticed and talked to many people around this time of year, there is a little summer slump here where it does slow down a little bit, and I'm realizing that year two right now. I mean, luckily I'm still doing relatively good, but it's definitely not as busy as the beginning of spring. But for door knocking, man, just don't even overthink it. It's really not about saying the perfect thing at the right time. And yes, you can work on the legitimate skill of sales, like objections, tonality. Like, there's all the complicated things, but when you're first starting out door knocking, it's too much information to try to perfect it. All you're trying to do is overcome your fear of rejection, your fear of failure, your fear of judgment, because when you're approaching people's doors, sometimes people are shocked, or sometimes they're just thrown off by like a stranger at their door. So it might come across as like, it might be more personal to you if you're not used to it. And then you get offended when people kind of are a little snarky, or maybe they're just like, they look irritated. And I still struggle with that sometimes. Sometimes I let people affect me, and I got to realize that if somebody rejects you at the door, you're going to walk away. 10 minutes later, they're going to forget that you ever came. They don't even know what you look like. They don't know your name. They don't know your company. So you really got to remember that whenever you're out there on the streets, knocking on doors. But I would be selective on neighborhoods. You can kind of go on Google and type in average income per zip code in your area, and it'll kind of give you a list of zip codes where the median household income is a little higher. And I would try to focus on those areas for the most part. Not to say that there isn't any opportunities in all areas. It's just it's a little bit easier to sell $150 to $400 job to somebody that has the extra cash, and they're more likely to have the extra cash in higher income areas. But something that really helps too to realize is you're probably not going to charge the same price while you're door knocking as you would if somebody called you from Facebook or Google, because it's called interruption marketing, right? You want to go to the door with some kind of promotion, some kind of special deal, one time only, and that really helps. You tell people, hey, I'm in the area today, and I'm looking for work. I'm a new pressure washing company. I just work by myself, and I was just trying to find some work. Did you want to get a free estimate while I was in the area? Because I'm doing estimates for a couple of your neighbors. And if you come across where when they open the door, you say, hey, how are you doing, sir? And you're not like, hey, sir, how are you doing? You have 30 seconds for me to demonstrate my product or talk about my business? No. You just open the door and say, hey, how's it going, sir? And then, if you want to, if you feel uncomfortable, just say, look, I'm so sorry to bother you. I was just in your neighborhood talking to a couple of your neighbors about possibly getting pressure washing done. I just wanted to stop by and make you an offer, or give you a free estimate before I headed back home. And you say something simple like that. Not everybody's going to say, oh, of course, yeah, just give me a free quote or whatever. But a simple objection you're usually going to get is like, oh, no, I'm not interested, or no, thank you, or whatever. And you say, can I just make you an offer while I'm here? You don't have to accept it, but let me just give you a price. And that's where you can kind of go into your pitch, where it's like, hey, if you were to call my business from Google, or if you found me on Facebook, the normal rate I would charge to do your driveway would be $275. That's a standard rate for your size driveway. But since I'm right here, right now, I would be able to do it for $180. So we're going to take $70 off that rate, because I'm not having to pay for transportation fees or anything. I'm already set up and ready to go. So if you did want to get it done right now, I can absolutely do that. If not, then I hope you have a great day. Obviously that's not a refined, perfect pitch, but it's just something like that. Like, you're coming across like nonchalant. Don't stand at the door with your shoulders square and just look at them without blinking. Like, there's certain things where you knock on the door, you take a few steps back, give them their space so they're not feeling like, okay, you're crowding them and making them feel uncomfortable. You take a step back, and you don't greet them as soon as they open the door. They open the door, and once you make eye contact, because for like half a millisecond, they're going to scan your body. Just make sure, okay, there's no threat. He don't have any guns. He's not in the military. He's not a police officer. Like, things that people would probably throw them off big time. So they get that instant reaction of, okay, this person's not a threat. And then you look up and say, hey, sir, you hold your hand up, showing your hands like, hey, I don't have anything. Another opener that I like to use with people is, how you doing, sir? Don't worry, I'm not one of those sales guys. I'm not a sales guy. Matter of fact, I was just talking to your neighbor across the street. I do own a local pressure washing business by myself, and I thought I'd stop by. I noticed that, you may be due for a pressure wash of your driveway, something like that. It's like, look, sir, you don't have to commit today. Stuff like that. Like, you're really not trying to throw people's guard up. People are very defensive when they're at their home, and especially when it's, out of nowhere. So those are just some tips and advice I have for door knocking, because sometimes in business you got to do things that are uncomfortable. You have to step outside your comfort zone, and yes, you probably could just keep throwing money at Facebook ads and Google ads and SEO and building a website, but you can do the old-fashioned way as well and just go out there and walk your streets and pound some doors and just get a bunch of no's. And it's very hard mentally. Even me, like I'm not scared to talk to strangers at all. Like, but over time, like there's certain days where you get a lot more no's than other days, right? Like today, I got 2 yeses almost back to back, and I only knocked probably 15 doors today. So that's not usual. There's some days where I get 0, and I knock 100 doors, but that's the nature of the business. But if you really want to keep going in the business and you really want to make this something, sometimes you got to do what others won't do. So one day you can live like others won't live. I know that sounds corny, but whatever. Like Dave Ramsey, if you know Dave Ramsey, he says, live like nobody else so one day you can live and give like nobody else. And sometimes that includes door knocking, cold calling, following up 10 times with somebody until they say, leave me alone. Like, you just never know. But you'll get 100 people that are like, I'm not interested. I do my own pressure washing. But then you'll get that person that comes out and says, I'm so glad you knocked on my door because I couldn't find anybody. All my family lives out west or they live somewhere else and I have nobody. I don't know anybody here. And thank God you knocked on my door. And come on in, have a glass of water. Like you'll get those people that are very excited and they're happy and they feel lucky that you knocked on their door, and it'll make up for all the losses. They're not losses. It's all a learning experience. Each time you go to the door, it's like, as you're walking away from a rejection, you say, what could I have possibly said different to possibly alter the outcome that I received? Was I talking too fast? Was it my tone? Was it my attitude prior to knocking on the door? Sometimes I'm guilty of this, like my mind, I get rejected 10 times in a row and my mind's kind of just like going and going. I turn into a robot and I say, hey sir, my name's Joe. I'm doing pressure washing. Just wanted to see if you like a quote. Like, you kind of get into this mindset where it's like you turn into a zombie. But check yourself before you knock on the door and say, look, this is one step closer to getting a job. Like, determine how much would be worth your time. Like if you got one job per day, how much would you need to make, and then go get it. Like literally, I want to make $300 a day if I go door knocking, right? So what do I need to do? That could be 2 small driveways. That could be a house and a driveway. That could be 2 houses. And go get it. The hardest job to get is the first job in a neighborhood. But once you get that first job, now you can leverage that throughout the neighborhood. You get that job, you park your truck or car or trailer by the road where it's visible in high traffic areas, and then you knock the neighbors before you start that job. You knock 5 neighbors each way in each direction on the street, and you say, hey, I'm doing Miss Johnson's house right there. I just wanted to let you know my machine's going to make a little bit of noise, and I just wanted to let you know. And if you would like to get a free quote, I can do that as well. Boom, you knock on 5 doors, and then once you're done with the job, pack everything up, go knock on the door and say, hey, just got done with Miss Johnson's. Take a look at the driveway. What do you think? Yeah. Do you want a free quote? Because I'll be back in the area tomorrow, the next day, the next week. And you knock on the 5 doors, and boom, next thing you know, you went from 0 jobs that morning. You did 1 that day, and now you got 3 more scheduled. Like, you can leverage that and say, look, my yard signs are out in her yard. You'll have my number, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, I get so many jobs from door knocking, not necessarily pounding the doors. Yes, I do pound the doors, but once I get that first one, it makes it so much easier. Now your confidence is higher. Your tone is better. You'll smile more because you're like, I just got that job. And now, while you're working, people will drive by and see you. And then you go knock on the door again and say, hey. And you just have a different energy about yourselves. And it's just a snowball effect. And it's happened to me many times. And I'm excited when that happens. So anyways, hopefully this video finds you well and you've learned something or maybe inspired you to try something. So let me know what you think below. Love you guys. See you later.